And so, a couple of people choose cocktails, a couple of people wanted to drink wine. And I was the only person not drinking alcohol. And I said, have you got anything? Have you got anything non-alcoholic? And they were like, sure, we'll bring you something. Which immediately slightly concerned me, right? And on reflection, okay, so there's nothing in the menu. You're not even going to tell me or ask me what I would like. This is like potluck, kind of bit of a lottery. And what came over was a pink, fruity, sweet, syrup-laden. Yeah, it didn't have a little umbrella in top, but it may as well, right? A child's drink, a mocktail.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Decoding Cocktails podcast. I'm your host, Chris LeBeau. At the ripe age of 38, I left my former career behind and joined the hospitality industry. Since then, I've been on a rapid journey of learning, meeting all sorts of great people, and this podcast is my chance to bring you along with me, whether I'm interviewing somebody that works in the industry, another enthusiast, or occasionally stepping back to share what I'm working on or my thoughts. I'm so glad you're here, and so with that aside, let's get into today's episode. What's happening, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of the Decoding Cocktails podcast. I am Chris LeBeau. Today, my guest is Ben Branson. If you have found yourself enjoying tasty non-alcoholic cocktails, or at the very least looking at them on menus or on retail or bar shelves in the past several years, Ben is arguably the reason why. While the NA market as a whole is multidimensional, back around 2013, Ben, who has an agrarian background, farming has run in his family for many years, was messing around at home and became intrigued by the idea of producing the world's first non-alcoholic spirit. This also was after reading a 17th century book he found online called The Art of Distillation, which helped him really get started on his journey. And this eventually became what is now known as Seedlip. As Ben will tell you from the jump, he heard both positive and negative feedback, which he took as a good thing. People had an opinion about whether non-alcoholic spirits should exist or not. He is also quick to point out that it is still early days for the category, so we all need to wait and see where it goes. But what as he says is roughly a $14 billion industry, it is not going away. That said, he reminds himself every day that there are still people out there discovering brands like Fever Tree for the first time, which has been around for 20 years. According to Seedlip history, when his first product launched in 2015, the first 1,000 bottles sold out in 3 weeks, the second 1,000 in 3 days, and the third in 30 minutes online. Not bad, Branson. Not bad. To date, Seedlip has 4 products, one of which launched just in the past 6 or so months. In this conversation, we're going to talk about how non-alcoholic products are made, its trajectory in the industry, and more. What I love about Ben's outlook is that it feels easiest to summarize as a person should be able to get a tasty beverage whether they're drinking alcohol or not. I was out for a walk just the other day with a friend who doesn't drink anymore, but he talked about the great satisfaction of the sharp bite he got from sipping an NA IPA in the shade after doing yard work. I think Ben's outlook points itself at bars and restaurants like this. If you want to be a respectful bar or restaurant, NA drinks shouldn't be an afterthought. They deserve the same amount of care as the rest of your menu. If you're not a bar that's serving high-end cocktails, you don't need to. Maybe just a couple of NA beers. But this deserves to be at the forefront of our mind at this point. Ben recalled a dinner that he was out with friends about 10 years ago during our conversation. That night, he was not drinking because he was the driver, and every part of the dining experience, as he says, the experience, music, food, lighting, ambiance, and drinks were exceptional. But when Ben asked about NA drinks, the waiter basically said, "Oh, we'll make you something." And so he wasn't given any choice, and what showed up was a fruity, sugary, what he calls child's drink. Whether or not you want to invest in NA cocktails, we need to think about how something like this could actually really be insulting, almost in a way. I also asked Ben about the cost of NA cocktails compared to one with booze, and he had a good response that I think is for us to wrestle with more culturally and broadly. When we buy a drink, are we paying for the ABV or for the flavor and experience? I'd say that I think maybe this opinion can vary day to day, depending on what you're kind of in the middle of. But Ben basically said when the same amount of flavor, care, and attention is paid to an NA drink, he thinks about that we're paying for those things as opposed to the effect that you get from actually consuming alcohol. For a final piece of good news, since I think it's easy to be down on the world or the country these days, Ben says that in particular, when he comes to the US and sees and tastes cocktails here, he leaves inspired. You can find Seedlip online at seedlipdrinks.com or at seedlipdrinks on Instagram, and Ben is at seedlip_Ben. All of this will be in the show notes, everybody. Enjoy this conversation. So Ben, where I wanted to start today, because I was like, I think pretty much when any trend is in motion, it feels obvious at the time, but in hindsight, that's the easy part. So when you were first kind of like kicking this off, you had this idea. What was the general feedback from people? Were they curious, dubious, laughing? Like, tell us about those early days in terms of being the prolific Ben Branson with this idea for an NA spirit.
That's a great question, and I know listeners can't see me, but I was laughing as you were kind of asking that, because I wind my way back to kind of 2013, when I first started basically playing around distilling ingredients that I was growing in my garden and distilling them in my kitchen, and with this was nothing to do with making a drink or a non-alc spirit or a seedlip, or it was me just doing what I do. And so then when I started to kind of, I guess, I put the word out, and actually initially it was talking to suppliers. They were my first, I was talking to a few people about how the hell does the drinks industry work, and what are wholesalers, and what do distributors do, and how do bars work, and going out and looking at menus, and just trying to absorb everything that I could about the industry, having not come from it. And so, suppliers were the sort of first, glass label ingredients. And there were some dubious people and some dubious reactions. And I think I either got, and this happened when Seedlip launched, I got extremes at both ends. And what I did get was a reaction, which I held on to that, right? There wasn't a kind of, so what? And that wasn't the end of the conversation when I would say to someone, hey, I'm trying to create this distilled non-alcoholic spirit. So the extremes went from people telling me that, I was a genius, and that why had no one ever done this before? And oh my God, it makes so much sense. And yes, why aren't there any good non-alc options out there actually? It went from kind of that wonderful, like, very validating and very complimentary, to what's the point, and why this is never going to sell a bottle. I'm not interested in giving you bottles or sending you prices or supplying you ingredients. And this is just the worst idea ever. And there's no need for this. Don't give up the day job kind of chat. And I've held on to, I've tried to hold on to both those aspects, right? Because they're both really important. But the one I probably lean on most still now in anything that I'm doing non-alc wise, including Seedlip, is that this is still really early days for this category, really early days. And so I hate the idea of assuming and expecting someone to get it or want it or want to buy it or want to drink it, or in non-alc's case, completely understand it immediately. Because, if you're not in the industry, even if you are in the industry, there's still a lot to learn and there's a lot to get your head around. And so, yeah, I try to stay sort of grounded, and, we still today, there's a lot of education that's needed. And this is not kind of some fully normalized mainstream thing, right? So yeah, it's been thankfully, it's been an amazing journey so far, in the sense that there has been a large amount of evidence that there's a need for what we're doing and what we produce, and that people appreciate that and can get their head around it and do think the drinks are delicious and can understand it and it can make sense to them. But yeah, it's definitely been both extremes at the beginning.
Makes me think of, I think it was the music producer Rick Rubin says the best art divides the audience. And so, yeah, I think like having extreme fans and detractors, assuming you're not doing anything nefarious in the world, it kind of, it's what's going to also attract more eyeballs in general. Great. Like, oh, what's this thing you hate so much? Let me go look at it. Like, oh, wait, I actually like this thing. So,
Yeah, and look, for an inanimate object that you don't have to buy or consume to incite anger, like in the world of my brain, where I'm fascinated by psychology and consumer behavior, like that was pretty incredible that there could be a reaction like that. Or equally, the reaction that people still message me now of like, oh my God, see, they tell me the story. Everybody always remembers the story of when they first had Seedlip. And that to me is really, really powerful and amazing that they remember that, because I couldn't tell you any drink that I remember, any drinks brand that I remember having for the first time. And I'm in the drinks industry, like I know lots of brands, and I see and I remember, and I've got a photographic memory. So I know every single pack, right, that I've ever seen, but I can't tell you the first time I drank those things. And so the power of people's occupying a tiny little space in people's memory of that first experience being brilliant. Yeah, that's something that we really hold on to, and obviously want to scale effectively, so that more people have a great first experience of not just Seedlip, but also the non-out category.
yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd add in there is I think, so many things out there feel like iterations upon what we've already tried, or they're fine, right? I think I was like to say I can remember tasting Amaro for the first time. I can remember tasting Rum Agricole for the first time. But many of the other things are kind of they're interesting, but they don't command attention. And with Seedlip kind of being such this major detractor, whatever, our different direction, perhaps it is that thing that does more command attention as opposed to the thing that you're kind of just taking part in that way. So hopefully it's kind of occupying that space of just so radically different in terms of also its approach to just what it even is.
Yes, and that uniqueness and that distinctiveness, I think is needed in everybody's businesses, right? And all brands, and regardless of category, standing for something and changing something and meeting a need that's relevant in people's lives, I think is really important. And so, yeah, we're very proud of that difference, and I'm very proud that we haven't tried to imitate or emulate something else. yeah, I'm really proud of that stance.
And so I know that there's a couple of different ways, Ben, different production methods that people use, but to kind of back things up, we certainly have bartenders listening who are familiar or even making it, but like really like, as my father would say, like, held it to kind of like drilling them in the moment, like, how is this made? I'd love to, we certainly want to talk about flavors, but when someone is looking at a bottle of Seedlip and they're looking at a bottle of gin, for example, what do the production methods look like for you to end up with what is in your bottle compared to a bottle of gin or whatever analogy you care to paint right there?
I mean, we haven't got all day, unfortunately, because I love talking about all the technical stuff, right? But in really simple terms, the difference between, say, how Seedlip's made versus how gin's made is uh, A, we do everything individually. So there's no soup, there's no blend of ingredients, for example, raw materials that are put in a still together. We do not do that. And we don't do that because it's not, in our view, the best way to get the best flavor. And I approach it, and did at the beginning, really, really simplistically, in the sense that what I care most about is sourcing the best ingredient and then finding the best way to have that ingredient in liquid form that tastes and respects that ingredient. So there's no way in hell that I can extract oak and mint in the same process. They are fundamentally, as raw materials and structures, so incredibly different, right? And so when you think that we're using a variety of different ingredients in each of our blends, and each one gets its own process and its own distillation technique, that's really like that's a lot of work, and that's a lot of ins and outs, and it's a lot of trial and error, and it's a lot of experimentation. And yes, finding the right way to distill rosemary, or distill cascarilla bark, or distill peas, or any of the kind of weird and wonderful ingredients that we use. We're sort of, yes, we want to do each ingredient justice in terms of the process by which we celebrate its uniqueness and flavor, but we also have to have one eye on the final blend. And so I guess the challenge is twofold, in that we want to end up with a set of ingredients that are beautifully pure, and then we need to blend them in the right proportions to, I guess a bit like an orchestra, right? To sort of deliver the crescendo that's all working in harmony together. And I started on a little 2.5 liter copper still in my kitchen, and I started making hydrosols, right? I started just using steam to extract mostly leafy herbs and plants. And then I got carried away, and I wanted to, distill like soil and pebbles and chilies and all kind of, anything I could get my hands on, just because I was at that time not interested in the end result. I was interested in the process. And that gradually, over a period of 2 years, got more funneled into, I'm going to make the world's first non-alcoholic spirit, and I'm going to use distillation to make that. And Seedlip Spice came first. And so, yeah, I'm going to Jamaica, and I'm going to go and track down the best allspice berries in the world. And yeah, I'm going to talk to the family of maize farmers that can supply us cascarilla bark that no one's ever heard of from the Bahamas. And like, I don't know, then I got really, yeah, I just could nerd out. I love nature, so I love plants, and I love them as much for what they do and what they can taste like, and how they can make delicious drinks, as much as I love understanding them and kind of working with them, to sort of celebrate them. Sorry, that all sounds really abstract, but I just didn't want to find a recipe for an alcoholic product and then just try and copy it. I kind of, I didn't want to do that. I think there's so many possibilities when there are 47,000 edible plants in the world. Why would I want to? Yeah, why would I want to kind of go and do what somebody else has done? That didn't inspire me. And so yeah, that's, you know, and getting to work with loads of different great ingredients, you know, is part of the creativity that a bartender has, in terms of a back bar, or someone at home has it at home with their pantry or their bar cart. They can experiment, and there's amazing creativity in the world of food and drink, in terms of combining ingredients and techniques involved in getting the best out of those ingredients. We're just doing that to get the liquid in the bottle, and then other people are taking it on, and then they're having their own techniques and their own, you know, bartenders the best Seedlip cocktails I've had, that have all bar one been in the US, have all been milk punch Seedlips. Like Seedlip as a milk punch is hands down still, you know. I had a Seedlip agave, our newest product, milk punch, when I was in Austin, when we were launching Seedlip Notas de Agave earlier this year, and just a winner. It's just such a good, you know, texture and body and mouthfeel and glassware, and just absolutely delicious. And that's nothing on me. That's nothing on Seedlip, in terms of, that's pure like technique, in terms of taking a base spirit and then changing it and playing with it, and using a wonderful little process to then make an amazing final drink. So yeah, I think we talk a lot about distillation and botanicals and ingredients and blending, and there's loads of that, you know, in non-alc, but I don't think we talk maybe as much or enough in our category about the technique involved of then taking these bottles and turning them into amazing drinks.
Yeah. One, obviously knowing that the scale of Seedlip looks different now than it did back in 2013. But when it comes to a term, like you use the term, like I know one of the local bars here in my city uses one to make theirs, hydrosol. Do you mind explaining to people what that is? Because this is kind of a basic technology that's creating these kind of distilled style products, but sans booze, as I would understand. So do you mind talking to people about what a hydrosol is real quick?
So when I go back to 2013, it's only like 11 years ago. It's not that long ago, right? And I wanted to grow. I remember going into our local supermarket, and I was going in there to kind of do a weekly shop. And in the UK anyway, and I'm sure it's the same in the US, you know, you have a little fresh herb kind of section, or like display stand. And there were these little pots of herbs on this display. And I'd seen them loads of times, and I bought some before, basil or rosemary. And I just remember thinking like, wow, it's always the same, like 6 or 7. You know, it's always basil, it's always rosemary, it's always dill, it's always chives, like coriander, cilantro, I think you guys call it. You know, like it's always just the same one. And you know, I'm a farming boy. I'm like, my family's been farming 320 years in the north of England. And so I grew up around agricultural commodity produce, barley, wheat, potatoes, turnips. not botanicals, not herbs, not spices. And so I kind of was just like, oh, I wonder why we're reduced to so few, because surely there are loads. And so I just got on the internet and I started looking. I wanted to grow some different herbs at home. And so that opened up Pandora's box of learning about botanicals and this whole world that I'd never come across properly. And I Wikipedia is an amazing kind of treasure trove. And you can just I just got lost, link to article, link to link to link. And I ended up coming across a PDF copy of The Art of Distillation. And if you Google The Art of Distillation PDF, you'll find what I found. It was a scanned copy of a book from the 17th century. It was not under my family's floorboards, and I did not find it, in some cave somewhere. But I do have a copy from 1664, and I have been to see the original copy of 1651, King George III's copy that lives in the British Library. And this book was really cool because it was in a PDF form, so it was really easy to kind of scan through. And there were over 200 ingredients mentioned, and I was kind of like, wow, I'd never heard of some of this stuff. Bladderwrack, which is a seaweed, and feverfew, and just mallory, and just all this kind of wonderful stuff. Anyway, I then started kind of seeing pictures and illustrations of apparatus and kind of scientific equipment and recipes. And I now know and learn that this is like distillation equipment. These are like stills and pot stills, and then some of these recipes are they're all remedial recipes. It was all medicine. Some of them contain alcohol, some of them don't contain alcohol. And effectively, I was looking at kind of ways of distilling an ingredient without using alcohol. And so I was kind of like, okay, I want to have a go at doing that. And so I did, and that is producing a hydrosol. And so a hydrosol is literally, I did my first experiment, water, mint, in a little pot still, heat it up. And we all know the science around liquid to vapor to liquid, heat, cool, heat, cool. And to me, and so what you get is you get that essence of mint. You get a liquid that smells and tastes like mint. I thought I was a genius. I thought I was kind of hooked. It was really, really magical to me to take a plant and turn it into a liquid like this. It blew my mind. And so I wanted to keep doing it. Hydrosols, though, are tricky beasts, and they're not the most stable of liquids. So if you got a rotovap, or you've got pot still, or whatever you've got in your bars or your kitchens, by all means, play and go and have a go. But the shelf life is really short. So just be really careful on those liquids from a stability perspective, because you're carrying over a lot of volatiles, and these are they're quite active liquids. So that's not how we make Seedlip now, but that's how I started, and that's how I started to learn the process of distillation, which was it's kind of fascinating. And now I have a rotovap at home, and there's lots of different forms of distillation now. But starting on that 2.5 liter still 11 years ago, and having The Art of Distillation, I mean, that book changed my life.
So to that end, and obviously, there's as happens with so many conversations as we're talking here, the wormhole, I feel like it's just opening up right now. And I'm like, oh my God, there's too many directions here. But so Ben, one of my, to your point, what mixologists in bars are doing with your products are just incredible, or the other products that are coming out. Why do some of them have, because Seedlip is very much marked as shelf stable, but why do some of them have shelf lives, and why do some of them, like Seedlip, not in the case of the product? So, like, is that a question that can be answered rather simply or whatnot, or is that too, you know?
No, that can be answered. It's we worked really, really hard. Like I wanted to make a commercially viable liquid, right? I wanted to make I wanted to make a liquid uh, that could sit on a back bar, not go in the fridge, because I wanted to see a bartender. I wanted to sit at a bar and a bartender to do exactly the same ritual as he would or she making an alcoholic cocktail. And so I didn't want any like reaching beneath the counter or going into the fridge or hiding bottles. I wanted it on the back bar, and I wanted it to stand up and for Seedlip to be there standing proud. The smallest words on our label are the words non-alcoholic. So this was all about kind of standing up and being proud and being visually kind of recognizable through our beautiful labels and our animals and ingredients that are on the front of our bottle. So that was really important, and I built in I did a lot of testing, and the stability is a consistently important thing in non-alc, because these products aren't cheap, right? You're paying for hopefully good quality products and good quality liquids using good quality ingredients with craft and care and attention put into them. And therefore, I don't think that they should reside in the fridge, or you have to drink them in 3 weeks, for example. I think we wanted to, and do, have the familiarity of go and put this on your bar cart and put this on your back bar. And this is about choice. So have alcohol, other non-alcoholic products, like have the choice, but have them there on display, be able to easily reach for them, be able to easily make drinks with them. I think, as I said right up at the top, it's still very early days in this category, and there've been, over 1,000 new non-alcoholic brands launched in the last 3 years across sort of beers, wine, spirits, the functional side. And so, guess what? That means that the manufacturing side and the technical capability within the supply chain also needs to catch up, and it is, absolutely, it is. And there are some amazing products out there now, and there is amazing choice, and that's a brilliant thing. But there are technically and formulation wise some choices that people have to make when they're making their products. So sugar being one of them, right? Having lots of sugar and having a shelf stable product that's ambient, but you only want a little bit of sugar in there, very tricky. All you're doing is putting food into a liquid that it can feed from. Preservatives, we use preservatives. We need preservatives in there because we are very, very, very aware and grown up and sensible on wanting to have a viable business that bartenders and buyers and wholesalers trust, that consumers trust, in terms of it's not going in the fridge and you don't have to drink it the next day. And so, yeah, when someone comes up with a natural preservative at scale, like Happy Days, will be there in the shop. But there are various controls that we put in place in terms of our ingredients, in terms of our bottling and blending process, that we've had to test and learn and experiment and build up that knowledge over the last, since end of 2015 when we launched, that mean we've got, a viable business and we can make our products at scale. And that's not true of everybody in the category because it's so young. So you've got lots of small players, some people making it themselves still. It's a very varied, I guess, technical capability level across all the supply chains, because this is happening globally as well. Guess what? It's not just happening in the UK. It's not just happening in the US. There are now products coming from, the non-out category is now worth north of $13 billion across its top 10 markets, according to IWSR. So this is not a small category. It's early, but it's not small, and it's growing very fast. And it's global. So of course you're going to get a whole variety of stuff going on then, therefore.
Yeah, and I love you kind of coming at it that way, because I remember, because also if you're a bar, in theory, if you've got decent drinks and engaged patron base, you're moving through product at a decent clip at that point, even if it's sitting on the back bar. But I remember, with a more notable brand in the market, leave it at that. I remember for more the home aspect of things, I'd picked up a bottle of a Italian bitter liqueur that they had, and I'd enjoyed using it for basic spritzes and whatnot. And one day I grabbed it, using it occasionally, and just found a floater sitting there on the top. And I just remember thinking that, to your point, because this stuff is not cheap, and while people might buy a bottle of whiskey and being like, I'm going to enjoy this thoroughly and quickly, a lot of times it's like you get it to enjoy it every once in a while. And this idea that I'm paying pretty good money for this product and you want me to like race through this. And I know some of them have come out in smaller bottles as a result, but it gave me pause about the home consumer market, because people are clearly interested, which is fun to see. But it's like this idea of pay this money and now ready, set, go just seemed like the wrong approach to it. And so that is helpful to hear, and probably useful for some of the smaller producers or emerging producers where, yeah, nobody maybe loves the idea of putting a preservative in there, but it's also, do you want to piss off a customer because they just spent $50 or whatever? And like, guess what? I'm never buying again.
Yeah. And look, this is, I guess I've learned that, I have a lot of ideals, right? And I have a lot of, I got a lot of rose tinted pairs of glasses, and I'm going to put those on and keep those on until I absolutely have to take them off. And so, of course, I set out to start with no preservatives. Of course, I don't want preservatives in there. But of course, I want to change the way the world drinks. And of course, I want Seedlip to be in all of the best bars, restaurants, hotels, retailers around the world. Of course, I do. So what do you do?
Mhm.
Like, you have to. These are the kind of business versus, my love of the ingredients and nature. You have to weigh this stuff up. All I'd say on the kind of the at home pieces, I think it's so, bars, it's different. I think, with the on premise, it's kind of different. They are more often than not probably being sent a sample, or they've booked a tasting, and they kind of get that opportunity to go, okay, I like it, I don't like it. Guess what? I'm going to ask you loads of questions. I'm going to ask you about the stability. I'm going to ask you about shelf life, storage, etc. You get all of that with the on-premise, whereas the consumer doesn't get all of that. And they can read it, sure, and they can find it on websites, etc. But when I order a bottle of something to my house and I open it, the first thing I don't do is go on the internet and have a look at the FAQs, right? Yeah, I can look at the bottle, but I've already bought it, and I might not have tried it. And so, Seedlip, because we've got such a great presence in the on-premise, and we've got such a powerhouse D2C offer, because we're non-alcoholic, we can sell to 50 states from our website very, very easily. And that's an absolute sort of compass and engine with our business in the US, because we can find out what's going on, right? We can find out where people are buying, but we have this opportunity for trial in the on-premise. And so people can go and have a great cocktail, and they can ask a bartender if they need to ask questions. And so we very much see it as an omni-channel approach, rather than, because all of these dots of education and best first experience, they don't happen in one place. They're all connected. And so, yeah, I think that best first experience is so crucial to a new category, and so crucial when you're asking somebody to spend a decent amount of money. And yeah, they're probably not thinking through, you get a bottle, you try it, you're probably not then thinking through, okay, how long have I got to drink this for? And how much did I spend on this? And therefore, what's the cost per serve? And where do I need to, you're kind of not thinking through those things, especially if your reference point is the world of alcohol, where you don't, unless it's sort of wines or moves, but you're not putting things in the fridge, right? You're kind of putting them on the bar cart, and they aren't something that you're using day in, day out. So yeah, it really is kind of the minutiae of detail of all of those different touch points that allows a consumer or the trade, right, to have that best first experience. We take that really, really seriously.
So let's talk a little bit about where we are and back up, like set the context. I remember once I saw they talked about, like there was a general trend for like the emergence of a new industry. And for those who can't see at home, it's like, there's the early days, see Ben kind of walking along a very slow growth market. And then things begin to hit their uptick moment. You have the bar chart really begins to, or the line graph really begins to surge. And everybody goes, oh my God, this is the next giant unicorn of the world. Private money comes in, products flood, and then correction. And then likely you have kind of, emerging growth from there. But so anyways, I know that even just coincidental to our timing this week, Punch ran an article talking about some NA bottle shop that is closing or whatever. We've talked about shelf life. We've talked about some products not being as stable on things. And obviously, again, I remember this conversation in the American whiskey market. People wanted to get their rye or their bourbon on the shelf, and they weren't letting them really sit long enough. So there's a lot of impatience, like everybody's trying to jump on the train. So where do you feel like we are right now? Because to me, it feels like this isn't going away at all. I think we probably we may be seeing, at least for some people, a little bit of a bubble popping, about to pop. Where do you kind of feel like we are on the roller coaster right now?
I still go, I don't live where I grew up. So I live in further south in England versus up north where I grew up and where we farm. And I still go home, and, family, friends, are still so eager to kind of tell me, oh Ben, I came across this amazing like mixer for Seedlip. I think it's kind of new. Let me think about the name. What's it called? Like Fever Few, I think Fever Few. And I'm like, oh, Fever Tree. And they're like, yeah, Fever Tree, that's the one. Like, oh my God, it goes so well with Seedlip. Like, they seem to be like, yeah, popping up around the place. And I'm like, guys, that businesses are like over 20 years old. And I remember back in 2015, learning about the Hendrix journey, for example, or like learning about these amazing examples of brands that feel like they've suddenly taken off. And the reality is that they don't do that. It takes a long time. They talk about the 10-year overnight success in the drinks industry. And, Seedlip's not even 10 years old yet, right? It's our 10th anniversary next year. Next November the 4th, Seedlip will be 10 years old. And we should really think actually about what we do for that, but mental note. And so Seedlip was on its own. It was the only non-alcoholic spirit in the world until like 2018, 2019. So we had to do a lot of work ourselves. Now you've had, COVID was it seems like a big catalyst. At home, can't go out, bars, restaurants, hospitality all closed. Everybody on the internet, e-commerce, online shopping, different things to spend money on, not holidays and going out to eat, etc. And so there was absolutely, it seems like there was a boom of people across the world that thought it'd be a great idea to develop a non-out business during COVID and launch. And so that's where this 1,000 brand boom, as I call it, has come from. Already, so I think, what do I think is going to happen? I think there will be a consolidation. I think a lot of those businesses in the non-out category are undercapitalized, lack expertise and capability, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But the drinks industry, as I've learned, is a weird old industry, and it's got its quirks, and it's got its things you do and you don't do, and it's got its ways to succeed. And that's difficult as an outsider coming in. I know that because that was me. There's a lot to learn, regardless of how successful you've been in some other kind of category, right? So I think that there will be a bit of a kind of watershed of brands not, I don't know, being able to keep raising money or not keep going. And that's fine. Like, I think we want the quality to rise to the top, and we need brilliant options and brilliant choice, not mediocre choice and not too much choice. Seedlip's only launched 4 products in 8 years. And, Notas de Agave has only just launched. So we as Seedlip, we're not interested in flooding the market in kind of going boom, boom, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one, and saturating it and overcomplicating it and bombarding consumers. I think it's about doing things, with the long term in mind. And this category, as you said, it isn't going anywhere. We're not going back, right? We're not rowing back. It's not a trend. It's not a fad. Non-alc is on its path to normalization, and normalization means choice, and it means no taboo, and it means not being asked questions if you don't want to drink alcohol for that drink, and it means not being smirked at or laughed at by a bartender, and it means having amazing options on shelves and on back bars and in menus. And that's all entirely possible. I think some of the gold rush that some people have entered this category hoping to get are people who are not from the drinks industry, right? And kind of think that this is the space where you can make a quick buck. And I've not seen that happen. So, a long, exciting, sustainable future for this space. And I'm just continually interested by how we socialize and how we're going to socialize. That's really all that I think is absolutely fascinating to me, because what we do as making products is we're providing the props and the objects and the things to consume that are part of, they are only part of an occasion. They are not the occasion. And so, you know, having the right format, the right flavor profile, the right offer, you know, and Notas de Agave, I know I keep mentioning it, but I will, is a US only product. We made it for the US, rather than going, let's make a new product and put it in the 35 countries that we are. So yeah, I kind of, I keep saying it, it's still really early days. I'm really proud of where Seedlip's got to. I'm also continue dissatisfied, right? So there's always more that can be done for the health and longevity of this space. But what I am so excited about every time I come to the US, I always leave feeling just so buoyant and so energized. And you know, I've got 3 young daughters, and my life is very much like, you can't take me out of the English countryside, right? I am in heaven in the English countryside, but I do always leave the US. You know, I left, where was I? I was in LA and Austin in like February. And I left, and I have these sneaky thoughts of like, I should just come and live here. I should just come and move here. And I'm not going to do that. But it's great to do business with people in the US. And US consumers make cocktails at home. And they don't do that in the UK, really. Like, we don't really make cocktails at home. Like, we know how to have a beer and a glass of wine and make a gin and tonic, and you might get ice in that, and you might get a garnish, but like, ask someone to make a margarita at home, forget about it. Like, it's not going to happen. So being in the US, where the on-premise is incredible, the scale and opportunity, there's amazing bars, restaurants, retailers. We've got a D2C platform that covers the whole of the US. So we are 100% accessible and available. Just, yeah, like, thanks for having me on here, because it's, I get excited talking about Seedlip in the US.
No, that's lovely. And just a couple other little things. And if there's anything we haven't covered, let me know. So one of the things that I've loved, yeah, for like someone like myself, well, first, when you talked about understanding the booze biz, I remember actually someone else talked with it before, Phil Duff, talking about tasting your product for the first time. But Phil Duff also saying that his most popular talk that he gives is like, how does the drinks business work? And yeah, it's a big, complicated thing. I'll try to remember to link out to it in the link for this. But yeah, I was thinking about my own world of like loving agave spirits, rum, whatever. But there's times in a night where it's like, okay, when I was younger, hitting that gas hard the whole night sounded good. But now it's like, let's just pull back on this train here. But I would like something to still like feel like I'm part of the party or whatnot. So I think it's cool to see the portion of the NA market that are people who consume alcohol, just not tonight or not right now. It's massive. But
it's huge, and it's the most, you know, Seedlip is we are found and discovered and gifted, and you know, by lots of people who don't drink alcohol for lots of different reasons, right? And that's amazing. They are not my focus. I am focused on people who do drink alcohol, who are not drinking alcohol for that drink or that evening, day, month, week, whatever. I only care about 2 things. I care that people get great drink, regardless of whether they're drinking alcohol or not. And I care that operators don't leave money on the table by someone nursing like a seltzer or sparkling water, right? So giving guests an amazing 100% 360-degree hospitality experience, because guess what? Loads of people drink alc and non-alc in the same occasion, right? It's not a binary, like you've just been saying. It's not a binary kind of, tonight I'm drinking alcohol and tomorrow night I'm not drinking alcohol. You can start with a Seedlip spritz. Start with that. Beautiful, great, nice, bright, refreshing, something light, easy to get into. And then you can have something else. Go and have a margarita. Well, you know, like I kind of, the funniest things that people have said to me about Seedlip over the years, one of them has always been like, so can I also, you know, I drink alcohol, so is it okay? Is it okay if I drink Seedlip? like,
You're not going
like,
to combust if you do. Yeah.
what have you just said to me? Do you know what I mean? Like, what have you, let's like rewind and think about what you've just said. Of course you can. Yeah, so I think it's the moderation side, right, of wanting people to drink great drinks, full stop.
Ben, having heard you talk about this, I feel like I probably know the answer to it now. In terms of, again, the fact that we're still at early days and this market is evolving. But when I'm in a proper cocktail bar, for lack of a better term, and I'm here in the Midwest, we don't quite have those New York City prices, if you will. But like if I walk into a bar and I see a cocktail for, let's just say, 14 or 15 US dollars, and I see an NA cocktail listed on the menu and it's $13. I remember I was actually talking with a guy named Martin from IWSR, and he was saying, after he'd been in London, they had some really delicious NA drinks.
Mm-hmm.
What was in it? Don't remember, doesn't matter. But he's like, yeah, we paid 10 pounds. And after a minute, we were like, do we want to do this again? So I guess I'm curious, like, one, I think like over the long run, maybe it's like, the question is more like, is this delicious? Am I having a good time? Not like, am I getting my money's worth? But how do you think about the pricing of NA cocktails versus fully loaded drinks, if you will?
Yeah, so I think about it in a couple of different ways. Number one, back in 2014, I went to a really nice restaurant in London, and a bunch of us were having dinner, and I was driving, and food menu amazing, cocktail menu looked brilliant, wine list extensive and interesting, ambiance perfect, service lovely, like this is great. And so people I'm with choosing their drinks, obviously the waiter came over, still or sparkling, great, we choose still or sparkling, so we get the water, and then it's like, and anything else to drink. And so a couple of people choose cocktails, a couple of people wanted to drink wine, and I was the only person not drinking alcohol. And I said, have you got anything non-alcoholic? And they were like, sure, we'll bring you something. Which immediately slightly concerned me, right? And on reflection, okay, so there's nothing in the menu. You're not even going to tell me or ask me what I would like. This is like potluck, kind of bit of a lottery. And what came over was a pink, fruity, sweet, syrup-laden. Yeah, it didn't have a little umbrella in top, but it may as well, right? A child's drink, a mocktail. And I had to pay, this is nearly 10 years ago, but I probably paid £8 or £9, right, for that mocktail. That is not okay. So it is not okay to be going and paying a lot of money for a blend of fruit juices and syrups, topped with a bit of soda with some silly name. Like, full stop, not okay, bad experience. People don't want to order another one. You're treating them like a child. That's not okay. It's also not okay to not have a menu, and it's not okay to have options, and it's not okay to just do like, oh, bartender's cool. Like, we'll make you something on the spot. You've got to treat someone who's someone's drink, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcoholic, with the same care and attention and craft and storytelling and theater and ritual. And therefore, if you look at, unless you're talking about a Negroni, right? Or I don't know, an old fashioned, or like very alcohol forward kind of cocktails. Guess what? A lot of the other ingredients in alcoholic cocktails are non-alcoholic. They're juices, they're syrups, they're, tinctures, teas, whatever. And so all of those get, they have their own cost prices too as well. So you're kind of, when you actually break it down, and you ignore and remove, as you just said, the fact that this isn't about, I'm not paying for the effect. I'm not paying more for more alcohol, right? I can pay loads more for a margarita than a Negroni, but a Negroni is 24% ABV. So come on, like, I'm not paying for the effect. I'm paying for the craft, the care. I'm paying also for people's time. I'm paying for prep. I'm paying for glassware. I'm paying for all the other ingredients, the garnish, etc. So why should that be dramatically lower just because the alcohol content is different? Why should a 20% ABV spritz be a different price to a 5% ABV spritz, for example, right? We're not paying for the ABV is my soapbox moment, as I would call it. We're paying for we're paying to be in a place and have a great experience. We're paying for the hospitality, and the hospitality is everything from like choosing a drink from a menu, not like being told someone will make you something, for example. That's all, everything that you're paying for is right there. The furniture, the music, the decor, the whole ambiance, the whole experience, the paper that the receipt comes up, like all of that. Not just the ABV of the end drink.
This is a note to the Seedlip webmaster. You should put, you're not paying for the ABV on the website. That's great. No, I really, I agree that there's a restaurant here in town, phenomenal chef, great wine menu. Cocktails are pretty decent, but yeah, I remember I was out and I fortunately have been through it enough. I was driving a group of people that night, so I wasn't drinking. Somebody else ordered a mocktail, and what they got was mockery. And it's just like, you are too good of a chef running too good of a restaurant to make this kind of amateur mistake right here. Like what are you doing? So no,
it's an afterthought, because I tell you what, and it won't always be like this,
right,
but it is now, that the surprise and delight and potential repeat custom, and how you make someone feel by showing them that you've thought of them is by providing a great non-out menu or great options, or like, is not to be, that shouldn't be underestimated. Because if you're not drinking alcohol, guess what? You don't go into a bar, a restaurant, a party, a house party, a dinner party, an event, and think, oh my God, I can't wait to see what they've got to drink. You do not do that. Not that you necessarily, if you are drinking alcohol, think, oh my God, I can't wait to see what they drink. But I bet you know and believe and think you're going to get something great to drink. And you're going to get choice. And so that flip, just from a like psychological perspective, and then a financial and commercial perspective of, guess what? You've made me feel really included. You've given me something really delicious. Guess what? I want another one. And guess what? I want to know what else you do. And guess what? I'm going to tell my friends. And guess what? I'm going to mention it. Guess what? I'm going to take a photo of it. Guess what? I'm going to post it on social. Guess what? Like, you have converted me. I am a fan. Thank you very much. And that's a really powerful thing that the on-premise and the events industry can do for its guests and its clientele. It's really, really simple, but it goes a long way, and it means money's not left on the table, and people have a great time, and then guess what? They stay longer because they're having a great time and they feel included. But you've got to have great products to be able to do that. Yeah.
I want to throw in real quick because this exists in food, in cocktails in general, but I do think for people that really take it seriously, what is more prime? I remember I heard the American chef Grant Achatz in Chicago, he has the restaurant Alinea, say the difference between delicious and wow is surprise. And in the non-alc mark in particular, there's a lot of green space out there, green fields out there for people. And so, yeah, they're expecting, again, people might be so expecting mockery that you kind of have to talk them into it a little bit, a little extra salesmanship. But when they get it, they're going to be like, holy shit, like I didn't know this was possible. I thought it was just junk. So, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it can go the other way, right? Of you get it wrong and people are turned off and they're not interested and they think it's rubbish and they've had a really bad first experience. And by the way, just to say, because the word mocktail gets a lot of bad press, and I've been guilty of giving it a lot of bad press because I'm not a fan of the word. But mocktails just need their own definition of what they are, and all they are kind of fairly infantile drinks that are fruit juices and sugar syrups, and that's fine, right? I'm just not sure there's a need or a place for them when we're talking about the world of cocktails,
right? Some
of which contain alcohol, some of which don't.
Yeah. No, the first word in mocktail is mock. And yeah, so yeah, you're absolutely right. So to kind of draw us to a close here to can keep things flowing. One, your guys' AI tool is cool. So yeah, for people out there who are kind of like, okay, what's this Seedlip stuff really about? What do I do with this? Ben's got a little he's got a little AI bot on his site. I think everybody needs one on their website, but yeah, that'll kind of coach you through what to do with it. Ben, any final thoughts, or where do people find you guys online? All that good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, seedlipdrinks.com, Seedlip Drinks on Instagram, Seedlip_Ben on Instagram is mine. I'd love to hear from you, and yeah, see what you're doing. If you've got a hold of Seedlip, if I can answer any questions, you want to get nerdy and geeky on the technical side, you want to tell me you think it's amazing or if it's rubbish, like whatever. I'm so amazed at what's going on in the US in this category and this space, and just want to I guess continue being a part of it and keep seeing Seedlip on amazing menus and back bars.
And if you want to see more Ben in the US, send him beautiful countryside pictures of our country, and maybe we can win him over here. So
get me to Alaska.
That's right. Ben, this is honestly absolute delight. Thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Hey, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love it if you'd write us a review on whatever platform you listen on, or share an episode with a friend. The show notes are available at decodingcocktails.com. decoding.com/podcast. Happy cocktailing, everybody.